one thing to point out, it's very important. I may have had a drink, so...
So all I would say is keep it going so you don't fall asleep halfway through.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's just if I slur my words, it's not the microphone. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the ugvm podcast. I'm your host Andy Kavanagh, but you can call me deKay, and with me today are Toby.
Hello.
Kendrick.
Good evening.
And special guest, ugvm alumnus and host of the Amigarama podcast, Lorfarius.
Hi guys.
Guy. And how are you all?
Very
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, good. So it's nearly Christmas, and I'm sure you're all expecting a shiny new ZX Vega Plus under the tree on the big day, right?
From what factory of elves?
Yeah, elves or something.
Well, they were all manufactured in October, weren't they?
All 5
Due to arrive November.
All 5. How many were actually, they actually know definitely were manufactured? It was less than 10, surely.
At least 5 that I know of, but I've heard rumours of around 20, but that's never been confirmed.
No, I think they had about 20 odd that looked like they might possibly be real in a big pile, but I don't think they're.
Oh yes, with the paint on the boxes and the ripped cardboard from the older Vegas.
Yeah. I've spoken at length about the ZX Vega before, but it's not really improved over the last few weeks, has it?
It seems to be getting worse with pretty much every day. New stuff's coming out, hiding away. Someone else has fallen away from the project and then releasing stuff on Twitter and then infighting and arguing. Never seems to stop.
No.
Forgive me, where is the manufacturing supposed to be occurring? Is it locally there in Britain?
Yeah, it is supposed to be, I think. Some of it certainly, anyway.
Yeah, because I think they sold the whole idea on creating the whole thing in the UK, but it just seems to have gone a bit quiet. Pretty much.
It's not normally cost effective to manufacture stuff in the UK, but if you don't actually manufacture anything, then it's quite cost effective.
Yeah,
that's true. I think the problem is not so much that the manufacturing's gone awry; it's that the people running the project haven't run the project. So the actual factory, I don't think there was an issue there with them actually making them. They haven't been asked to make them. I think that's the problem.
I think that I don't know if you've seen in particular, Andy, the anonymous tweets that have been coming out with the leaked bank statements and stuff.
I have, yeah, I've seen those.
That's been going on for a couple of months now, but that seems to be getting more and more interesting as they've been working their way through £500,000, and pretty much none of it's gone towards manufacturing.
No, I think they've accounted for pretty much all of it and the extra funds that came through PayPal afterwards, and none of it. Basically, there's none of it left. It's all been accounted for. It's all gone. That's
all
it.
Gone.
Anyway, so something that's similar that has actually come out, or at least started to come out now, is the ZX Next.
Yeah, I'm a backer on that. I'm one of the first, I think. But I think if I put in for the £250 one, which was the full range with the Wi-Fi, all the bees needs and everything.
Sure. So, I mean, I know the difference, but obviously some of the listeners might not know the difference. So, for their benefit, what's the difference between the ZX Next and the ZX Vega Plus, apart from the fact that one exists?
Well, the Vega Plus was meant to be a handheld, but this is meant to be the Next is literally meant to be the next version of Spectrum. Is if production never stopped and they kept developing, like say the PC or the Amiga carried on over years and years, this is what we'd have today.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks a lot like a sleeker, curvier Spectrum 128. Pretty much. Yeah,
and I believe it's also got one of the original Spectrum designers involved as well.
Yeah.
So is it backwards compatible?
Yeah.
Yes, it covers the full range. It'll even take tape drives in if you want to go that way, or you can just put in micro SD cards or connect it wirelessly to a PC and go online with it and stuff.
So would I expect it to have the same sort of recognizable graphics of a Spectrum with that color palette and the color clash, but like higher frame rates? Or
yes, exactly the same.
Yeah,
exactly the same. But you can also create your own games on it, like Spectrum related. But they've done things like develop it enough so you can take the color clash out, or if you want to, you can develop it like a standard Spectrum game, but you can take it to the next level and improve them graphically. And the style of it, what I've seen so far, looks very similar to the Atari ST from back in the day. If you might not be familiar with that.
Yeah.
Spectrum wasn't 16-bit, was it? The Spectrum was...
Oh, no, it was 8-bit.
Yeah.
Forgive me. Spectrum Software. What's the state of the intellectual property? Is it all released into the public domain now? Is most of it owned and copyrighted still? How does that work?
Well, it's still copyrighted. A lot of it is kind of lost because nobody really knows who owns the copyright, whether it's the original developers or the publishers or...
I believe the term for that is abandonware.
Sky's involved as well, aren't they? Or Amstrad, because they own the copyright for part of Sinclair.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mess. So the World of Spectrum, basically the repository for all things Sinclair, they made an effort to approach as many people as possible involved with all of the games and all the other software and everything to do with the Spectrum, and ask their permission basically to allow their stuff to be distributed on the site. And for the most part, people have been happy to do that. There's a few that aren't. So obviously, old Ultimate Play the Game games, so that's rare now. They're not happy about it. Codemasters aren't happy about it either. But a lot of other companies have been, or it's basically, if you want us to take your stuff down, we'll take it down. But otherwise, we'll kind of assume that it's okay.
It's a bit like the archive.org, the Internet Archive. They've got like sort of 9,000 Spectrum games available on there that you can run in your browser. And
yeah.
I think the most interesting part about it, though, is you've had a lot of the older developers have come forward and they're actually developing newer games for it, or returning some of the classics and updating them, so they'll have like next graphics and sound effects and stuff. So it'd pretty much be a Spectrum game, but if it was taken to the next level.
Yeah.
I think the from Codemaster, or the Oliver twins who did the Dizzy games back in the day, that they've gone ahead to come and just do like a special Dizzy game for it on launch. Apparently, I don't think they're actually coding it though. They've just designed the game, and some other team has come along and they're creating it for them. Probably because they can't remember how to code after all these years. But
so obviously, the logical follow-up to the ZX Next is going to be the Sinclair C5 follow-up vehicle. Have you heard of this?
In fact, it's the perfect time for it, though, because everything's going electric, isn't it?
Yes, it is actually an electric tricycle. It's called the Iris e-trike, and it's being backed by Clive's nephew, Grant Sinclair.
Has anybody actually seen a C5?
Not in the flesh.
Only in documentaries, and
I did.
Obviously.
Couple of years ago, I was getting my car repaired in a garage, and as I walked into the back, it was just a backstreet garage. It was nothing like a big chain. And as I was in the back there, and I was just talking to the guy, and I noticed something sat on the top, and it was that familiar shape at the front. And I was talking to him, and it turned out he'd bought one back in the day, brand new. It had broken down, and then he just put it to one side, and then never done anything with it. And it was just absolutely filthy and covered in dirt and oil and stuff. And it'd just been sat there for about 15, 20 years, something like that. He didn't want to sell it, though. He was adamant he was going to keep it until retirement.
I guess it's probably worth something, right? I mean, it's a item.
It's probably worth over £1,000 or something like that.
That's nearly half of what it was sold for new.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is meant to be a gaming content podcast. Forgive
it's
the
sort
digression.
of gaming. It's sort of
Yes.
gaming. It's got its roots there.
Yes.
In the Transport Museum in Glasgow, there is a Sinclair C5 kind of display in there. And there's also a Sinclair C5 simulator, so you kind of sit in a wooden Sinclair C5 with the controls, and you actually control it on screen, and you play a game basically.
Well done for bringing it back on topic.
Oh yeah,
It was
That's really
the
impressive.
future once.
yeah. Okay, so what is the stage of your actual ZX Next then, Lorf? Is it being shipped out to you, or are you in a queue, or?
Well, currently they had a bit of a delay because they had some production problems with the main board for it. But they just finished that, I think, at the end of November, and they've started releasing them to backers, and they've been arriving just over the last 2 weeks. And I think there's been a couple of issues of like HDMI connections and it not recognizing certain TVs, but they're in the middle of pushing out updates for that to the firmware to sort it, and everything seems to be going to plan. And I think they're estimating it's going to be the end of January when they actually release the full version with the keyboard and everything in, and all the software come out. And they seem to be quite confident that's going to happen. So just
It's
over
gonna
a month.
be internet connected, is it?
Yes, well, if you've got the Raspberry Pi and the wireless add-on added inside, when you went through the Kickstarter and backed it, you could choose certain levels. I just went for the highest one because it just looked like the best option. But the one I went for, it literally came with a wireless option. Now, again, I think that depends on whether or not someone programs the games to use it, but you'll be able to use it for other stuff like connecting it to PCs, I think, and things.
Well, I mean, it's a shame there's been some delays and some problems, but the thing is, what's different about that from the ZX Vega Plus is they're open with it. They tell everybody what the problem is, and they get it sorted. So
every issue they've been pretty much on top of, or they've been explaining it to people, and they've been honest and open. It's complete coverage on the website and stuff. But you go back to the Vega, and there's literally nothing like that. They've been promising release quarter by quarter, and then that one slips by. They don't say anything for about 2 or 3 months, and then it's like, oh, we're going to release it in a few months' time, and then people get angry, and then all other stuff happens around it, and you've just had nothing. I think that the closest we've got is a few pictures of plastic molds being made from the original prototypes about a year ago, but they seem to still be claiming that those are for new production models that are being made. But then there seems to be proof out there with the accounts being shown that they've never actually gone back to the company beyond the prototypes. Very suspicious.
Yeah.
Now, the Vega and the Next are both Kickstarter projects, is that correct?
The Vega is Indiegogo. I'm not sure about the Next.
All right.
Next is Kickstarter.
Okay. So moving on from that then, I've got a list of all of the recent PlayStation Plus and Games with Gold releases. So do what we normally do and just quickly go through those if anybody has any thoughts about them. So on PS Plus this month, there is Siberia Collection for the PS3, which are a set of point-and-click adventures. Am I right? I think.
Yes, and this would be the first 2 games as a method of promoting the third one that's coming out soon. Is that correct?
Oh, I didn't know there was a third one, but that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, and has anybody played them?
I played the first one. That's it.
And was it any good?
I have.
I can't remember much about it. I don't think I was too impressed with it because I quite like graphic adventures and stuff, and I don't think I really got on with that one.
They always seemed a bit serious to me. I haven't played them, but when you got the option of being a pirate or like being Indiana Jones, it never really appealed to me to go to Siberia.
Yeah.
I've purchased them on PC. I purchased them for the original Xbox, and I purchased the version they released on the Nintendo DS. Right. And I'm ashamed to admit that I have not played any of them. I love the concept. I love the story as it's been sold to me on the back of the package, and I just haven't found the time.
They're coming out. I think one of them may be out already, but the first 2 are coming out on the Switch for something like 28 quid each.
Ooh.
Which seems a bit ridiculous when they're essentially free.
1998 or something was the first one, wasn't it? Like a long time ago.
Yeah. Are they doing anything with that though? Are they?
They're remastered
high
versions.
Yeah. That's not too bad, I suppose. Then, but
I suspect that there may be touchscreen support.
Probably, yeah. But even so, that's a lot of money when they're much cheaper everywhere else. Like a lot cheaper everywhere else.
But, I mean, is it the case that the kind of person that buys a Siberia game probably doesn't buy other types of computer games? It's like a particular type of gamer who's maybe been waiting for a release like this, and they'd be willing to pay for it because, it's right up their street, maybe.
I sense you directing this question to me accusingly.
Yeah, maybe.
It sort of reminds me of the Kyrandia games from back in the 90s, like on PC and pretty much everything else. Well, it was a series of graphic adventures which were mixed bit of comedy in there, but it would tend to be quite serious. It just seemed to be on that sort of a level. But I don't know why that's sort of just fallen away. But Siberia seems to have just become really, really popular. But when I played it, I didn't think the story, it was okay, but I didn't think it was anything amazing, or it didn't drive me to go on and play the other games.
As well as that, there's XBlaze Lost Memories on the PS3. I have no idea what that is.
I know a bit about this. This is another visual novel. The Vita version is considered authoritative, so I'm not sure why only the PS3 version is available on PlayStation Plus. I don't want to jump to a judgment having not played it, but I suspect it's just like any other visual novel. It's going to have a little bit of cheesecake and, a little bit of hackneyed story that you've seen in a million other anime plot lines, and it'll lead to some unexpected conclusion and then be completely forgettable. I think that this is another situation where there's going to be a new XBlaze game coming out soon, and so this release is intended to promote that.
Okay. Then there's Forma 8, which I was convinced I already had on PS Plus, but I didn't. And then I thought, oh no, I know why. It's because I got it cheap on the Wii U. And I didn't. So I have no idea where I've got that in my head from. I think I might have it on Steam lurking around somewhere, but it's not the game I thought it was.
Is it? Because Forza?
I suppose it's good they're still releasing Vita games at this point. I mean,
yeah, I think they must have released them all by now, surely.
Yeah.
Forma 8 is a Metroidvania type game, is that correct?
I think so, yeah. Okay, well, then we don't know about that. Wanted Corp, PS Vita.
Nope.
No idea what that
Haven't
is.
the foggiest.
No, okay. Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition. That's possibly pronounced correctly.
I bought several versions of this. I always keep meaning to play it because I really, really like the first one, but I just never get a chance. I never get around to it. I've still got I think I got an Xbox copy sat on oh no, it's the Wii U version just sat on the shelf. It's never been unwrapped or anything. It's still in the plastic.
I'm picking my way through the first one on Xbox 360 backwards compatibility. It's still good, like it still holds up, but it's sort of a background game for me.
Didn't they do a re-release for the PS4 and Xbox? Might be thinking.
Yeah, that's what this one is. I think it's.
That's.
Yeah, it's a HD remaster. I mean, it was HD anyway, but you know what I mean.
Has the third game been released yet? The one with is it Strife or Fury, the female horseman?
Forthcoming. I think it's not out yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think from what I've read, it's pretty. It's a sort of Zelda-y game, isn't it? Only kind of different theme.
I'd heard that the first one was Zelda-y, but having played the first couple of hours of it, it doesn't feel much like Zelda to me. It feels more like Bayonetta. It's like you walk into an area, do lots of melee fighting, that unlocks the next area, do lots of melee fighting, occasional bit where you fly in between areas.
Oh, okay.
I don't get the Zelda at all.
I think the Zelda, as you get further and further into it, it becomes more puzzle based. It's a bit God of War in a way with that sort of with the combat, but then as you get further and further, the puzzles and it's like a dungeon structure comes towards you, and then you're upgrading weapons and finding new weapons to get past certain things, and I can sort of see where it comes from.
That's the comparison that I was told about, that you get new equipment to go to areas that you couldn't reach before in parts of the map that you've already been to.
Yeah.
So it's more Zelda-y because it's a 3D open area as opposed to being Metroidvania, which would be kind of 2D.
And the last one then is Kung Fu Panda Showdown of the Legendary Legends, which on the PS4, which I don't know, but I'm guessing it's not vastly different to the other Kung Fu Panda games. I'm having difficulty saying some words.
Probably terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it was great. I think everybody went, "What? Why are we having this game?" when they announced the list. But they do seem to be scraping the bottom of the barrel a bit the last few months, I think.
I would just generally steer clear of any animated series video game tie-in. I mean, it would have to really do something special to get me to even look in that direction. I've been burnt too many times. Yeah,
I think you're right. And then on top of that, there's Until Dawn, and that's you again for the 8th consecutive month or whatever. Yeah, they can't give those away, obviously. So that's all PS Plus. Games with Gold, there's Warhammer End Times Vermintide.
So this is like Left 4 Dead, but with the Warhammer universe. I hear it's really good in co-op. I haven't played it in co-op, but I'm looking forward to trying it. I'll probably be able to let you know in a month or so's time. But yeah,
I'm led to understand that there's only a co-op mode, that there is no single-player version for this particular Warhammer game.
Much like Left 4 Dead, I think. I mean, you could play it with bots. Maybe you can play this with bots. I don't know. I haven't loaded it up yet, but that's what I've heard. That it's very much, a Warhammer skinned Left 4 Dead, which is supposedly quite good.
Back to the Future, the game, which I'm assuming are the 5 episodes of that one that came out about 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, possibly even longer, isn't it? So.
Yeah, the Telltale Games game.
I mean, when it came out as a regular thing through the episodes, I was picking it up constantly at the time. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good version of the story, and how they expanded it on, and the voice work was fantastic. Yeah,
I liked it as well. In fact, I think actually I said at the time that they could potentially have worked the storyline of the game into a second trilogy of the film, and it probably would have worked.
Yeah.
But that was good. One of the better ones before they stopped doing so much point and click and had more QTEs and all that kind of thing in the Telltale games. And that's
having said
that
just sort of link. Have you tried the new Batman that they've been doing? The Telltale games of that.
No, I haven't.
Similar. You know, it's much more later on, but I mean, I tried the first 2 episodes. I've really enjoyed the style of it and the way they mix the story, and it seems to be a much better system than what they were using, say, with like Back to the Future for the episodic games rather. Seems to work a lot better. Yeah.
Then there's Marlowe, Briggs, and the Mask of Death for the Xbox 360. I have no idea what that is.
It's got a weird name, but it's like a God of War type game, I think. It's like a sort of big budget action, third-person hack and slash.
Okay. And Child of Eden on the 360, which I have heard of. And unless I'm incredibly mistaken, which I might be, this is the one that's a little bit like Rez. Is that right?
It's like a spiritual successor to Rez.
Okay.
I played it at the beginning of the month when it became available. I did the first level again. I've already finished it back on the PS3. And it's not as good as Rez. It's probably... I would think it was good if I hadn't played Rez, but it's sort of lacks something. It's got this sort of cheesy FMV all the way through it of this...
Was this one of the one that was Kinect compatible?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Although I played it with a controller. But yeah, it's sort of got this cheesy FMV of this girl in a garden that you keep seeing clips of, and then the garden gets covered in black goo, and then it's her job to get rid of the black goo. And then you go back to playing Rez for a bit, and then there's another little episode of that, which I didn't like the design of it very much. But the gameplay, it's basically Rez. I mean, you've got a reticule, you drag over things, let go, and they pop. And it's quite pretty. But again, feeling like a bit of a step back now that I've got Rez VR, to go back to playing it on a 2D screen just feels like going the wrong direction. Out
of that lot then, what's the best? I'd like to say Back to the Future probably, maybe Darksiders 2, although I've not played it. Any other?
Well, I'm quite into co-op gaming, so I'm looking forward to playing Vermintide, but I haven't tried it yet, so I guess I'll let you know in the future.
Okay.
I've got access to Vermintide. It's not something I've had a chance to download yet, though.
All right. Okay.
Of the list, Forma 8 is the one I'm most interested in.
Yeah, it's certainly the one I seem to own the most copies of. Or at least I don't own the most copies of, but I was convinced I did. So, okay. So, moving on from that. So you say you can play Vermintide then, Lorfarius. Is that because you now have the Xbox One, or...?
It's because I have the Xbox One. I've got access to it. I'm just not downloading it because one of the biggest problems with the Xbox One X is everything needs like a 40-50 gig patch to make it X compatible.
No,
which
really?
It's a bit ridiculous. I've only had the system for less than a month now, but it's really, really difficult with some of the games when you want to upgrade them and see how they look.
So this is in addition to the actual game itself. There's an additional download.
Yes,
to make
there's additional. So you'd have to. I think you have to download it at about 20 gigs, and then there's an extra update file on top. I think though it depends on the game, but some of them they'll combine it into a single thing. But some of the others I've picked up, you've got the game first, and then it upgrades and pulls it all down.
So is the like 40 gig? Did you say, or because
that's about 40 gig. I might be wrong on that one, but I know some of the games have definitely been 40 plus gigs.
And is that the case where the developer's gone back and reworked it with high-res textures? Or
yes,
is that
I think it's entirely down to the textures. It's just because the 4K stuff is so big and huge that it just takes up such a massive amount of space.
Forgive me, a BD-ROM only holds, 33 gigs?
More, isn't it? Yeah.
So the Xbox One X then must have an internet connection in order to support the 4K functionality.
Oh god, yes, you couldn't do without it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that they went back on, wasn't it? When the Xbox One was originally announced, and they went, it needs to be always on, and a load of people went, oh no, we're not having that then. And then a few weeks later they turned around and said...
There's the standard Xbox One, which was just... I mean, that would be like, say, with that one, it'd be about 20 gig download, and that'll play fine. But if you want to go down the X route with all the 4K graphics, you have to download a huge upgrade patch to get the rest. But there is a choice. It doesn't force that on you if you've not got one system. You can pick and choose.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
So how big's the hard drive that it comes with?
1 terabyte, which just isn't enough. I think, I picked mine up recently, and I've got about 4 games with it, and after I installed them, I've used about 350 gigs.
That's ridiculous.
Really have gone through it, and I've not really taken too much off the marketplace either. A few games here and there, and it's really eating into the space. I'm thinking of just sticking in an external USB drive into it, but I believe that the onboard SSD for it is much better speed-wise, so it's best in doing the installs on there.
Well, I run an Xbox One S, and I forget what the external hard drive I put on it was. It was probably fairly big, but having used it for a year, it just feels bottomless to me. Like I just install stuff left, right, and center, and I feel like I've only used like half of my storage. But I guess I'm running a lot of like Xbox 360 backwards compatibility stuff, smaller games. But yeah, I feel like I can't remember the last time I struggled with hard disk space. So the idea of buying a brand new console and then finding it hitting the roof would be annoying.
Yeah.
And here I am with my what is essentially 27 gig on my Switch. Less than half of it's used.
But I mean, is it worth it, right? So tell us about the 4K. Are you blown away by all of the slightly smaller pixels?
Well, I was impressed at first, and it sort of reminds me when I first got a Blu-ray player, and I can remember getting all excited and bringing it home and everything, and I got a load of films out with like very pretty scenes in, and one of the first thing I played was a film called Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah,
I got that when I got a BD.
I love that film at the time. I thought it was great. But when you play it, and there's lots of like ocean scenes in with the plenty of the ports and the sea on and stuff, and it's only a basic part. But when I remember sitting there and looking at the ocean and just thinking, my God, it's like looking through a window. It's before I just had DVD, and it was that same sort of effect when I sat down with the X at first, because I was looking at Tomb Raider first of all, and it just looked absolutely amazing and stunning looking around. But when you sit there for about 20 to 30 minutes, it just eventually washes over you and you just forget. And I keep thinking a couple of weeks later, and I'm just like, oh, it doesn't really feel any different.
But
I'm sure it is, but
could you go back though? Like now that you've sipped from that cup?
I think I could, because I've quite a decent. Well, it's 2 years old, my gaming rig now, but I spent quite a fair bit of cash at the time because I wanted a system for Witcher 3, and I got a 980 for a graphics card, which at the time was best one I could possibly get. But I mean, I've tended to play more games on that and appreciated them more than I have with what I've played with the X. And even though I've only had it for a month, I'm still playing my PC more, which probably sounds a bit odd, but I don't know. I should be impressed, I suppose. I even bought a 4K TV to go with it because I was due for an upgrade, but it's not really blown my mind or anything so far. And I've tried playing it with a few films and things just to try and enjoy a few of the features. But a lot of the films I've been looking at, which are just 4K specific, the problem I've found is when you're looking at a lot of sets when they've upped them to 4K, they look too real, and you can tell they're a set. Whereas before, I'd see them on Blu-ray, and it didn't. That sounds odd, but it just didn't feel like that. I mean, one film in particular, I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's a bit where you've got Johnny Depp is locked in a prison cell whilst everything's being blown up behind him. And when you look at it on 4K, that prison cell just looks like it's fake. But when you revert to the outside, it looks too real. It's very, very bizarre to watch. And I don't know if it was just that one film. I've got a few others I'm meant to sit down and watch. I've got Terminator 2, which is the theatrical version, which is all in super 4K. But I'm hoping that'll improve it better. It might have just been that one film I'd watched, but
maybe it's because of the difference between actual real objects that they filmed and CGI that's been put in at some point, and you can see kind of the difference between the two at the higher resolution, whereas at the lower resolution
I think a lot of it's set dressing as well, because it's all so super high def. Well, it's like nothing you've seen before. It looks perfect, but it's all razor sharp and it looks fantastic, but it just looks fake in some cases. But again, I think just down to how they dress the sets. And yeah, you do get some of it with it. The CGI can look a bit dodgy, but I suppose that just as they go on, they'll just improve things.
Yeah,
I suppose that 4K motion pictures that are taken from the original negatives, anything that was photographically generated is going to scale up nicely because it's not actually being scaled. You're getting a higher resolution, whereas anything CGI is going to have to be scaled up, and so you're seeing the maths up on the screen as opposed to a more accurate representation. What you said about the gaming experience is interesting to me because it feels like the 4K effect it's momentary. It's temporary. It's just like every other graphical leap, from PlayStation to PlayStation 2.
I play an awful lot of games, so it might just be I just let this stuff wash over me too easily. But there was that initial wow factor, but it doesn't really add anything extra special. I mean, I got a couple of games with the system because I really wanted to try out the 4K mode, and one of the ones I got was like Assassin's Creed Origins, because I heard good things about the 4K and that, and yes, it did look special, but after a while it just felt like the other Assassin's Creed. You were just running around for a very pretty area. It didn't look mind-blowing. There's the odd bits you go into the odd bit of scenery, oh, that looks fantastic and that looks amazing, but then part of me at the back of my mind is just thinking, I've paid all this money and it sort of just looks like it would have looked on a standard Xbox, but just a bit prettier.
Smaller pixels don't make up for unoriginal gameplay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Lorf, before we move on?
Beyond that, I suppose, like I've been playing a few games for it just because it was a newish system. I did get into that Assassin's Creed for a bit. I wasn't very impressed with that. I don't know if any of you played it.
No.
Nope.
No.
I've been on and off with that series for a few years, and some of them have been pretty good. The recent ones have been terrible. The latest wasn't a terrible game, and I played it up until pretty much I could start exploring Egypt a lot more and climb the pyramid and stuff, which it looked absolutely amazing, but I just did not get on with the combat, and it was the story was a bit boring and very bland compared to how good that story's been in the past. So it's just want a very interesting experience, and I know I should have pressed on to finish it, but I ended up just selling it back on Amazon to get a different game. So I wasn't impressed.
The first Assassin's Creed I enjoyed, but then they just started releasing them hand over fist, and it felt like a torrent, and I was like, I can't keep up with this. And I just dropped out of the whole series after the first one because it just seemed like, well, if I try and play 2, by the time I finish it, 5 will be out.
It was very strange how they released them. I mean, I'd never liked the first Assassin's Creed, but I think it was just too early, and it just wasn't developed enough. And the second one came along, and it was much a proper open world, and the stealth worked, and the combat was a lot better, and it was starting to get there. And then as they broke 2 off into 3 sequels, I think it was, and then each one of them kept getting better and better up until about Revelations, I think was the third one.
And then they put a tower defense game in it.
Then the tower defense.
Luckily, you only had to do one, and you could ignore the rest. But that was a bit of a misstep. That.
But that in itself was a great. It was sort of like it wasn't a main series. It was a spin-off of the main series. It was very strange what they did, but I really enjoyed those. But as soon as they got to the third game, it as a series, it just lost me. And I sort of returned for the fourth one, which was the pirating, and I enjoyed the pirating part more than I did the Assassin's Creed part.
No, I was the opposite. I hated all the boat bits. Really hated them.
You see, I was addicted to pirates back in the day, back on the 16-bit system. So to get the chance to actually go around in a boat and shoot things with cannons, I was off to my own little fantasy world. It was fantastic.
Did you play Rogue?
I never got it. I never got it. I've heard very good things about it, but I never picked it up.
Yeah, because the assassinating bit I found a lot better because there was I don't know, it seemed more less disparate than the stuff that was in 4. There were larger areas but fewer of them. You see what I mean? Instead of being islands all over the place, there were larger towns instead. So it felt more like maybe Assassin's Creed 2 in those areas.
I'll be honest, I was really hoping they would have gone off and done like a pirate game because they were hinting at it at the time, but they just never did.
But they did.
Oh, go on.
Black Sails.
I've seen that.
I think. Is it Black
It's
Sails?
hard for me to listen to all of these spin-offs and titles and not think that the entire series is just intended to bleed gamers dry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to correct myself here now. So Black Sails is the name of the TV series, but they did announce a Pirates game. Ubisoft did announce a Pirates game.
Not the Rare one, which is by Rare, not
no,
Ubisoft.
That's Sea of Thieves or whatever it is it's called. I can't remember. It's not that. There is an I haven't made this up.
Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones, is that the one?
I'm Googling now. Skull and Bones, Ubisoft's new multiplayer pirate game, announced
the one.
at E3 last year.
That's the one.
And to be clear, none of these games have anything to do with the Sid Meier pirates at all.
No, nothing.
Well,
absolutely.
They both feature pirates, so they have that to do with them.
There is that, yeah. Yeah, but that's basically their spin-off. They even said it's pretty much taken the pirating bits from the Assassin's Creed games and turned them into a full game.
I'll be on board for that then. That does sound exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Right, moving on from pirates. So there was a strange announcement recently that nobody was expecting about Bayonetta.
Yeah, there was a new trailer. It came out at the Game Awards. What were the Game Awards we had at the beginning of December called? The something Game Awards. Maybe it was just called the Game Awards. Anyway, those awards, the awards for the
About games, yeah.
The award-winning games.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of trailers. There was two that caught my eye, actually. But Bayonetta, I didn't know that there was going to be a third Bayonetta, so that was a nice surprise to see that. If you've not seen the trailer, the gist of it is... It reminded me a lot of in the Thor Ragnarok trailer where he chucks his hammer at what's the lady called with the antlers? The antler lady.
Ayla.
Antler lady.
Thank you. And she crushes his hammer. Sorry for spoiling the trailer. It was a lot like that. So you see Bayonetta facing off against a sort of a shrouded foe and unleashes a volley of bullets, and they get stopped Matrix style, and then she gets the guns crashed and destroyed, and then she crumbles to the floor. So it sort of looks a bit like, Bayonetta 3 Fall of Bayonetta or something like that. Which, I mean, I'm all up for a new Bayonetta game. That would be fantastic. I really enjoyed 1 and 2. Basically, that's why I bought the systems that I bought for those two games. But also, for me, Bayonetta, like the highlights of Bayonetta were the fun, happy Sega memory bits.
Is that going to be a Switch exclusive, do you know?
It is to start with, at least. Certainly, I would imagine it probably will be permanently.
Well,
maybe PC
Bayonetta
at some
2,
point. But
Bayonetta 2 was originally a Wii U exclusive, and the world has waited with bated breath for a PC version that has never come.
Well, but they've only just released Bayonetta 1 on PC in the last 6 months, so I'm kind of assuming that Bayonetta 2 is coming to PC in the next 6 months, and probably Bayonetta 3 will be in PC.
Well, that's possible, but whereas Bayonetta 1 was published by Sega, Bayonetta 2 was published by Nintendo.
Oh, okay. Right, I didn't realise.
And I'm expecting Bayonetta 3 probably will be as well.
I've not seen the trailer. You said that Bayonetta's guns were taken from her. Did that include the gun barrel high heels?
Okay, so you're getting me to recite it from memory now, but she was disabled in some fatal manner, and I think that her guns got cracked and shattered, and then she falls to her knees. It's something along those lines.
Oh, okay, so we don't see if she's able to walk past that part of the combat.
Yeah, then it fades away, and it says Bayonetta 3, so it's like, Bayonetta's in trouble, you better buy this game, and, dispatch the bad guys. I think there was a call to arms, something like that.
I have a very important question about Bayonetta 3 because I don't remember seeing it in the trailer. What's her hairstyle?
You don't see it, so it's all the legs, which, I mean, that's still plenty with Bayonetta, but it's all viewed from the thighs down, I think.
Right.
As I recall. There might be a shot of her head, I don't remember.
Because the first game, that she had the long hair, and then the second game she was Sue Perkins, and then in the third game, what? I don't know. It's an important question.
A short, corrupt side parting.
Okay.
Well, if she went from Lisa Ann to Sue Perkins, then logically at this point she's going to be Sinead O'Connor.
Well, that would make sense, given the rest of the trailer, probably.
But then she
Children
needs hair for her spells, right? So if she was bald, that would be her with no power, which actually ties in with her being defeated. So maybe she goes bald. That does make a bit of sense.
But it would also mean no clothes because her clothes are made of her hair.
So high certificate.
Seems to be the way that games are going. So who knows?
They've just gone all in, and that's it. Fine.
Yeah, this descended quickly.
Okay. Something else, and that's well, it's not new, but a little bit of news from the last couple of weeks is we got another update on Shenmue III.
Forgive me for correcting you, but you are saying that. Well, if you say Shenmue, everyone knows what game franchise you're talking about. But if you ask fans like Zoe, they will tell you that you should refer back to the opening cinematic of the original game on the Dreamcast, and you will realize that the title of the game is properly pronounced Shenmue.
Shenmue,
And so this is.
That's it. I absolutely love this game to bits, and I just couldn't crawl over myself enough to put enough money on this Kickstarter when it first. It was embarrassing how much I was willing to put down. I was looking at selling bits of gear, trying to up my pledge and also because I was desperate to get this game. I've been such a huge fan, but even I'd call it Shenmue.
Yeah. Go on. How much money? How much money?
I was hoping to put about £500, but I ended up about 250 or 300 in the end.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
270 here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy, and it's just junk. But I was so desperate to get this game, I didn't care. I sacrificed a lot of stuff at that. I mean, it was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
I think I sold a console and some games at the time. They were just getting crazy levels.
So did you think they wouldn't hit their target? Is that what compelled you to do that?
Yes, I was absolutely desperate because they put quite a big target on it. There was about 5 million deKay. I don't know if you remember.
I can't remember if that's what their target was. I think that's what they reached. I think their target was 2 or 3 million, maybe.
Yeah,
but they
and I think at
well
first it was
that.
They did eventually, but I'm not sure. I think it took a couple of days or something, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, it wasn't very long at all.
It wasn't very long, but I was straight in from the beginning. And so I started reading about them little dolls that you could get, like things that come out of the machines as toys, and you got a set of them with a forklift. I was sold. That was it. I was off in Cloud Cuckoo land.
It was a $2 million goal, and there was a total pledge of $6 million.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
The reason that this is on my mind now is because December 2017 is the original stated delivery date.
They dropped that quite quickly though. When they first went through it all, I think after about 2 or 3 months, they started saying to people, "We think it's going to be nearer to 2018." And as this year's been going on, it's been creeping closer and closer, and it's passed into next year. So they've sort of been quite open about that. I think they've not hidden it and suddenly said, "Oh,
no."
Oh, go on.
I'm quite bothered by the way that they announced the delay, because in the text on the website it indicated, "And now a special message from Yu Suzuki," and they announced the delay in the form of a video that could not be, cited or text scraped. And I thought that was, for lack of a better term, cowardly.
Right.
And I still have high hopes for Shenmue III, but I have to go into this with my eyes wide open. It is a Kickstarter project, and there is every possibility that it may not actually be delivered. Yeah. Yes, and Lorf, I don't want to spoil your dreams here because I really want this game as well, but. Have you been watching the promo videos? Have you seen the most recent project update where...
I'll have to say, I started seeing all this stuff going out, I have been a bit worried, but at the same time, because I've been looking at the backgrounds they've been doing, and they released the statement quite after saying, "Please everyone, don't panic, they were just placeholders for the standard models." I thought that was a bit fishy, to be honest, when I first saw it. But at least they sort of turned it around pretty quickly when they realised that the horror that people were saying, why does it look so terrible for the amount of money that you've had? But at the same time, I must have backed the last 4 years about 20 Kickstarters. Loads of them have been games, and I've lost a bit on some that just have never come through, or it's not gone to fruition. But I expect it to some degree. But with this, I'm a lot more hopeful because it's such a big thing, and I don't want the dream to die.
Just to close out the topic on a pragmatic note, though, once we get past the original stated delivery date, the chances of a successful delivery drop with each passing month. And great. I don't mean to be I don't mean to be a negative Nancy about it, but that's just the reality. Historically, that's how Kickstarters work. If they don't meet their original goal, then the hopes fade and people forget and lawsuits begin.
Yeah.
So on that happy topic,
happy Christmas.
That's what I wanted to bring up in terms of discussing Shenmue III.
You could have an entire podcast about that. It's awesome. It's
Kendrick Dream Killer over here.
Yeah.
Their updates have got a real sort of mum and pop shop feel to them, I find. Like the little videos you find of sort of standing really awkwardly in front of a whiteboard and sort of pushing out a few lines and then filming over someone's shoulder. It really does feel like it's a small, like a little cottage industry.
If these people were not known to us, if they were not already famous, and if they had not already delivered something, you would immediately cite that as evidence of a scam.
Yeah. No, I believe we'll find it'll be released. I just want closure. Since it's Christmas, or nearly Christmas, or probably is Christmas when people are listening to this, you wanted to mention something about Christmas nights.
Oh, yes. Traditionally, people who have working Sega Saturns in their homes will pull out the Nights Sampler, or the Christmas Nights disc, as it's called, because when you play this edition of the game, during the winter months. I should specify this is an international podcast, so winter in the northern hemisphere. Thank you, Australia. If you play Christmas Nights during December and January, you will see the first level of the game with a snowy landscape and with the characters dressed warmly. And then you will also have available to you the various presents that are made available, like a giant advent calendar with the artwork and all of the additional bonuses that you get for finishing that level and playing with certain characters and under certain conditions. And then you'll forget about it for a year, and then the save battery in your Saturn will die, and then you will lose all of that progress, and then you'll have to do it all over again. That is the state that I'm in right now, is the little watch battery in the back of my Saturn has died, and so my Christmas night save has gone away, and now I need to go back and redo all of that again, which I will do gladly, but I wish I weren't being such a numpty about it and maintaining that more.
Just think how much better at it you'll be and how much better high scores you'll get.
And that's the sad part, is that I'm really not very good at nights. I stink at it horribly, but I still play it out of a sense of blinkered nostalgia.
Do you have the 3D controller for it?
Yes, I do.
The analog controller, yes, yeah.
It is the analog controller with the one giant disc thing on the left. As a matter of fact, I picked up a bunch of those when the Saturn was being discontinued and all of the American retailers were clearing out their shelves. I have approximately, actually I can count them from here, I have 15 of the Saturn analog controllers because I am mad.
I bet you don't have any of the steering wheels, do you?
I have both a first-party Saturn steering wheel and 2 third-party ones, one from the American region and one from the Japanese region.
They do take up some room.
They're quite large and bulky, but that is the only way to play Sega GT.
Rally.
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't use the steering wheels for Rally. I don't know why. I use them for GT, but not for Rally. I need to investigate that. There's probably
I always
a reason.
But the thing is, once you use a steering wheel on Rally, you just can't go back.
Did it actually support analog control, the original Sega Rally?
There was a re-release. The one that's okay. This might be unique to the American region. Now that I think about it, there was a Sega Rally second edition that was intended to work with the Netlink modem device that supported analog control.
You say Netlink modem?
Netlink, yes.
Oh, Link. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Netlink. I'm sorry. I'm not being very. What's the word? What's the word? My elocution is inadequate to the task today for some reason.
You must enunciate more. It's funny you should bring up Christmas Nights. Well, it's not really because it's Christmas. But yeah. I thought, since it's Christmas, let's play Christmas Nights last week. But I decided not to unpack the Saturn, so got myself an emulator. And but I did use my original disc, put it in, and was disappointed to see that although the game played fine, the music played at about 15 times the normal speed, and all the sound effects were just all over the place. So I had to play with the sound off, which kind of took half the game away. Plus, I didn't bother trying to set up a controller, so I was playing with arrow keys on a keyboard. So the best way to play
one system I never bothered really emulating because it's never worked correctly. I presume it's pretty much like that to today.
It is. I mean, it was a newish version of an emulator, and right. I think 2D games work quite well on Saturn emulators. 3D games are, well, never particularly brilliant, but some are better than others.
I know the technical reason for the emulation failures. If you're if you're interested, or if you think our listeners might be interested.
Yeah, it's to do with the custom chips or something, isn't it? And the way that it had parallel processing or something?
Actually, the Saturn is unique among game consoles in that it has 2 processors. It was one of the first home systems that had multiple cores. And so what it had was 2 Hitachi SH2 chips running in parallel. And most developers at the time didn't want to bother with that. So for 2D games, they would just use the one, and then the other would just sit idle. But for most 3D games, you would end up having to use both SH2 cores running at the same time. And apparently that's incredibly difficult to emulate.
Yeah.
To the point that when Sega created an in-house emulator to release Sonic R and Daytona and a couple of other games on PC, they had to just throw out all of their original Saturn code and just rewrite a lot of those games from scratch because they couldn't get it to work reliably on Windows 95 systems at the time.
That's probably why the PC versions are mostly much worse than the Saturn originals as well.
They're quite awful.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the Saturn games, like the Saturn would render 3D using squares instead of triangles. So like normally nowadays, if you were going to do a 3D object, you would build it up out of triangles. But, that wasn't a standard back then. So I don't know whether that's one of the reasons why it's hard to get it working. Although you didn't have a problem with the graphics by the sounds of things. It was the sound that
No, the graphic. But again, it depends on the code and what the code's trying to do and which, whether it's using one core to do all that particular thing and the other core to do something else. We don't know. But, there may have been ways to tweak it, but I just couldn't be bothered in the end. I thought I'll get my Saturn out at some point instead and haven't done that. So, so that's how that went.
So children, go get out your Sega Saturns and play Christmas nights on a proper console and not on a pikey emulator.
Ooh,
is the lesson to learn here.
There is that, yeah.
Play!
Probably a good point then to mention some of the things I have managed to play rather than things that I attempted to play and failed spectacularly at doing so. So I have mentioned several times now that I've been playing Mario Odyssey on the Switch, and it just gets worse. It gets worse.
Are you done with it then?
No, I won't be done till I'm finished, till it's all done, until I've got all 999 moons. But for a game that starts out so fantastic, it's really, really killing me playing it now. It's awful. I'm up to 888 moons, and it's not even the levels being hard or anything like that. It's not fun anymore. It's a chore now, which is a real shame. Never had this with a Mario game before.
Is that down to the design, or is it just yourself?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's me, but I think one thing I've said before is that most of the other main Mario games, so Galaxy and Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, there's only 120, 150 at most, something like that, stars or shines or whatever to collect. So it's a much more focused experience, maybe. Whereas this one, there's over 850 that you have to collect. The rest of them you just buy from farming coins, which is a cop-out as well.
Now that you've said that, Nintendo seems to have gone a bit over the top with these collectathons of late, because they did the same in Zelda Breath of the Wild with the golden poos. I can't remember what they're called. But,
I think that's their official name. Yeah.
So it was the acorns, and the reward for collecting 800 or 900 of them was a golden poo.
I definitely didn't do that, and I can understand.
I wondered why that stuck in my mind.
I can understand people wanting to do this kind of thing because it's something to do after you completed the game. It's another target to go for, and some people enjoy that kind of thing. And quite often, that kind of thing I do. I've done it in things like Assassin's Creed. I do wonder if it's because they're struggling a bit to get first-party titles out, and probably, even though the Switch has been a huge success, they've probably been worrying that the games haven't been long enough for what they had coming out, so they might have just made changes to, say, Mario and Zelda just to expand the life on them and put in a ridiculous number of collectibles in. It might just make a game which might be completed in, say, 25 hours, it suddenly jumps up to about 70 or 80, which gives a longer run for people to play. Yeah,
it's
up to
interesting
50
you say
now,
that.
We're lucky we've got access to a lot of video games, so we can jump and play whatever we like. But there's people who might get that game and that console, and they get nothing else for the console until their birthday or the following Christmas. So to have a game that's, even though it might peter out, that it lasts a very long time, I can see why that would be a good thing for some people.
Yeah.
Relating this back to a previous topic, did the original Assassin's Creed not also have a pointless collection task in it?
They all have.
The flags.
They all have.
Yeah.
They're not
Oh,
all
they
flags,
all have
but
feathers and things like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, if I understand correctly, the first game deliberately had the flag collection as a method of extending the length of the game. There was no reward at the end of it. There was no point to collecting the flags other than to make the number go up.
Yeah. Well, no, because I think at the end of that, you got a special suit of armor. There's always something in the Assassin's Creed games that was worth having, and you could collect it before the game finished, so it was good enough to be using in the main playthrough.
Yeah.
As I think the problem with Mario and Zelda is they're just there as huge, massive counts, and I don't think the reward is really worth anything. And they've done it in the past, as deKay was saying before, because you could get about 120 shines or the equivalent, but that number just seems to have jumped up. I mean, why did they need 800 or 900, say, when they could say push it up to 200? Just seems like a real high number.
Yeah, a lot of them aren't well crafted ones either. They're literally just here's a bump in the ground, get that, or here's a picture of an obscure part of another level. So you're in one level, you take a picture of a picture, and then you go to the level that's in the picture, and then find that bit. And I don't really play hide and seek. Anyway,
it's pointless busy work, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I've gone on at length about Mario Odyssey here in previous episodes and all over the place, and anywhere anyone will listen. So I'll leave that there. I also mentioned before quite a lot Stardew Valley. Won't say much there apart from the fact I'm now married. So I got married to Emily, who's a bit weird, and she has now made a crystal farm or something in my garden. And then every morning she gets up before me, and then I go out and she's there on the porch, and she tells me, "I've watered all your crops." Great. So did my crop waterers.
If she's made a crystal farm in your farm, isn't that the same as salting the earth?
Possibly. It is off to one side. It doesn't seem to do anything. It's just like an area that's now got lots of crystals there that you can't do anything with. So she also put some water in my cat bowl for me, which is nice because I never do, to no purpose anyway. So yeah, so that was Stardew Valley. I also played a game called You Have to Win the Game, which
I saw you playing that.
Yeah.
And I assumed that it was not you playing it. I assumed it was your script that sends me fake Steam notifications.
Shh, don't tell people about that. No, it was me playing it, and it's a free game on Steam.
It's good, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it's a platform game that's like a cross between the letter V 6 times and Jet Set Willy. So it's got some of the kind of the hard sort of platforming from the letter V 6 times, but it's got the collecting items dotted around a map thing that Jet Set Willy has, if you see what I mean.
It also has a really nice simulated CRT effect. It even simulates you have a 3D polygon of the monitor and then a domed screen with a window reflection on it, and then scan lines and a restricted color palette. So it has a fantastic look to it. The game.
Yeah, it looks really good, and that was fun, and I was enjoying it a lot. And I got to about, I think, 60 or 70%, and then I used a different computer, and it wasn't in my Steam library, and I thought that's a bit weird. Anyway, it turns out free games don't appear permanently in your Steam library.
Don't they?
No, it appears not. Anyway, so on the Steam forums for this particular game, they said a lot of people are seeing this as a problem, so we've set up something on itch so that you can pay us whatever you want, and we'll give you an actual Steam key. So I gave them $1, and now I have it actually in my Steam library. So my OCD sense is satiated, and it's all's well. Anyway, so I went on to complete it, and it was fun. It was maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours or something in total. Haven't quite 100%ed it, but yeah.
I got stuck on a tricky bit of platforming, I remember, but I wouldn't say I got hard stuck, but I got stuck enough to forget it existed and move on to something else. The developer's got another game which isn't free, but I think is very cheap, and it's like it's like a top-down 2D map that you walk around, like an overworld map, and then you go from village to castle, and then when you get to the castle, it zooms into, I think, a sideways scrolling, and you do like a bit of sideways scrolling stuff. So it's a bit like a JRPG overworld with towns type thing to explore. But I didn't get into that so much because it wasn't as immediately fun and satisfying as You Have to Win the Game, which just is immediately a satisfying good platformer, I thought.
Yeah. Anyway, so I enjoyed that, despite being a PC game, and I don't really play those, but there you are. But the main thing I've been playing, it's not really the main thing because it's not very long, but the thing I've been playing recently is Life is Strange Before the Storm. So Zoe's mentioned it before. Obviously, avoiding spoilers is important, but I want to talk about it. So I've made a lot of notes to make sure I hear everything, so brace yourself. So for those that don't know, it's a prequel to the original Life is Strange. So it's set in the time between Max, the protagonist from the first game, leaving Arcadia Bay, where the game's set, and returning to school there. And you play as Max's friend Chloe. She meets Rachel Amber, who is the missing girl from the original, and she gets expelled from school and so on. So the first thing that hits you really is that the time rewind mechanic that Max had is gone, because obviously there's no Max and she's the only one who had the power. I was wondering whether Rachel Amber had that as well. There's a theory going around the internet that perhaps she had that, and that's how she ended up without making spoilers, but perhaps not. So that power's kind of replaced by Chloe's backtalk ability, which is where she verbally smacks down people to obtain information or to get her own way, and it plays out a lot like the pirate fights from Monkey Island, only less silly. Yeah. So you listen to what people have to say, and then you find an appropriate and ideally clever but put down type response to it. So it's not on the same level as the time rewind, but it's quite a good mechanic in there. I don't know what happens if you get it wrong. I've not managed to do that yet, because usually the results are quite obvious what you're supposed to say. So yeah, it's been good. I mean, there's a few bad points. Sorry?
All I know about this game... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. And did you trip over the fact that the voice actor has changed, or what?
I was literally just going to mention that, yeah. So that's one of the bad points, and that is the big one as well, is that Chloe's voice actor isn't Ashley Birch anymore, okay? Whoever it is, I can't remember who it is, but she's good. Her acting is good, but she's not the same person. She doesn't sound the same, and it constantly jars. The whole time she's speaking, I'm thinking that's not your voice, which is really, I don't know, it's really disappointing. It's hard to get past, to be honest.
What about if you play the game with no sound using subtitles? That would work, wouldn't it?
It might do, yeah.
And the dialogue down to 0 and leave the music on or something, or get the soundtrack. But
do you know why they did that? Is it?
Yeah, it's because there was a voice actors strike. At the time. Right. And Ashley Birch wanted to do it, but obviously she was on strike, couldn't do it. They couldn't make the times work, and basically didn't do it. There's another episode to come. They did
that, didn't they, with Metal Gear Solid 5, and that really put me off that game when they put Kiefer Sutherland in instead of David Hayter.
Yeah.
Well, that was actual deliberate recasting as opposed to a labor dispute.
It was terrible, though. What a terrible decision they made. That guy pretty much made the voice of that character, and it was so odd. I mean, it was a good game and everything, but I really struggled with him as a voice actor, because it just wasn't Snake.
So yeah, I could turn the voices off, but all the other voices, they seem to be the same, and they're all still good and everything. So, and as I said, I can't stress, she is a good actress. She is a good voice actress. She delivers the lines well. She's believable in every way, except for the fact she's not Chloe. So anyway, but if I did turn the sound down, then obviously I wouldn't get any of the soundtrack, which the first game had an incredible soundtrack, like amazing soundtrack. Most of the tracks were done by Julia Stone and Sid Matters, who I'd not even heard of before it. In fact, there's another track as well. There's one called "Got Well Soon" by a band called Breton, which plays during a really stressful scene in the Vortex Club when they're having the party around the pool. And the music is so oppressive, and it perfectly matches the tense situation at the time, and it's probably the best game and audio combination I've ever experienced, and that's it's not even hyperbole. That was amazing put together.
Is that in the first game?
In the first game, yeah. So episode 1 of Before the Storm, because I've played episode 1 and 2 now. The music in episode 1, it was pretty nondescript, and it was just there in the background to fill the air, and it wasn't really there as part of the experience, and it left me disappointed. And episode 2 luckily was a lot better, but I'm not rushing to put the soundtrack on a Spotify playlist just yet, whereas the soundtrack from the original game, it gets played a lot. It's a really good soundtrack.
Zoe's always talking about it as well. I'm on, how many episodes are in the first one? I'm on the final episode of the first
5 game. Yeah,
at the moment, and I haven't got around to fishing out the soundtrack yet, but now I've had 2 recommendations. I should do that, because I do enjoy it when I'm playing it, definitely.
Yeah. It's it is. It's not even my kind of music. The first game either. It's not the sort of thing I would normally pick off the shelf to listen to. But I've bought 2 albums on the back of the first soundtrack. So that's something. So there's also in this one in Before the Storm, there's a weird bug on the PlayStation 4 where the head-up display, all the screen furniture stuff, doesn't fit on the screen. It's slightly off the screen, as if there's some as if overscan isn't set up properly. And that happened in the original game, but they fixed it before the second episode came out. So because I didn't start playing until the third episode was out, I never saw it. But they haven't bothered fixing it in this one. You'd think that the fix would have carried over because it's the same game engine, but obviously not. You can manually fix it. You can bodge a fix if your TV's got certain overscan options, but mine doesn't. So I'm kind of stuck with it. I mean, it's not a game killer, but it does mean that I missed some of the on-screen prompts and text. Like one bit, I was sat at a cutscene waiting, and then realised I probably should have pressed a button, and then noticed just the very edge of the bit telling me to press circle. So that was a bit strange.
Wait and buy it in a bit then, by the sounds of things.
Well, maybe. I mean, it doesn't affect the PC version, apparently. Or at least if it does, it's easier to fix. You just change resolution on the screen or something, but you can't do that on the PS4. So there's that. And I missed the time rewind bit as well. So, I mean, that raised the game to something a bit more sci-fi than just teen angst drama, which is what this is pretty much. So, but, you know. So there's quite a few negative things about it, but importantly, the story. I mean, so I'm 2 episodes in. The final one's due tomorrow, I think. So that's the 19th when we're recording this, and the story is excellent. I mean, it's much more low key than the original. There's no pending apocalypse, and there's not even a simple series of murders like there seemed to be in the first one. But there are twists, and you see Chloe and Amber's relationship blossom as well, and you know it's great. And I mean, I don't mean blossom in kind of like a heavy breathing her lesbians type of way either. It's, you know, it's genuinely sweet, and it's moving, and it's complicated, and you know, and yes, when given the option, I did make them kiss, but that was properly romantic. and not pervy at all. Honestly, it was. I mean, in this situation, it seemed exactly the right thing to do, and the way it played out, it obviously was exactly the right thing to do. And it was just romantic, and it was just a thing that happened. So I can see a lot of people saying, "Oh, you know, it's all going to be played because she's obviously going to be a lesbian and all this thing." But it wasn't like that at all. Really, in the end, it was just nice. You see what I mean?
Do you find that this prequel is setting up anything for the third iteration that's going to be coming out soon?
For Life is Strange 2, you mean, or do you mean for the next episode?
Well, not for the next episode, but for the for what will be the third game, which is going to be Life is Strange 2.
From what I understand, Life is Strange 2 is going to have no relevance whatsoever to the first game. So it's going to be a similar style of game, but none of the characters or locations or story or universe or anything crosses over. I'd be amazed if it sticks to that. You know, I'm sure that they'll end up finding something that crosses over, but as far as I'm aware, that's not the case. So
nothing is obviously being set up with a flashing light on it that says this will be important later.
No, I don't think so. Not here. So it's not as good as the first game, and it's not even close in terms of importance in any kind of way, in terms of the importance of the story or in terms of the importance of the game as a whole. But it's still well worth playing. Yeah. So that's me. That's all I've been up to. So you've already mentioned Assassin's Creed Origins a bit, Lorfarius. If you want to expand on that a bit, or
I think I pretty much said everything I could about it. Really, I was really very unimpressed with it. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while because I was hoping this would fix all the problems I've been having with the series as a whole. But one of the first things I did is, you know, with having a new console, I picked up a load of games, and the first one I played after Assassin's Creed was Rise of the Tomb Raider, and it just blew me away. I've not been able to play anything else. I've been hooked on it now for about 3 weeks. I absolutely love it to bits, and I don't know why. It's just such a strange. It's almost like it's what Assassin's Creed should have been. I mean, you can go hunting creatures in the woods, and it looks absolutely fantastic. And there's all stealth missions, and there's killing things, and a good mix of like QTE type events. And I'm having lots and lots of fun with it. It's a fantastic game.
See, you say all that, but that sounds horrendous.
It's great. It's great.
That's exactly not Tomb Raider.
It is, but it is, because the beautiful thing is, as you're running around through this free roaming world, there's lots of like side paths you can go down, and you actually discover, and you proper discover like tombs and caves and systems, and there'll be like mysteries inside that you can. And it's a bit like Indiana Jones. You know, you walk in somewhere and you go through this little section, and you just come out, and then you carry on with the rest of the adventure. And it works really well because it's like you don't have to do them; they are optional. But the thing is, it's worth going doing them because you see some of the best parts of the game.
Did you play the prequel?
I did, but I really did. I didn't like what they'd done to the character. I could see where they were going, but it just seemed to be really dark, and I felt it was a bit over the top. And I think when she was just murdering people left, right, and centre, it just felt odd for that character like that. Very strange one to play. I thought
I enjoyed the prequel, so it sounds like from what you're saying that this is a bit different to that. Then,
yeah, like, she's still killing people. You have to get used to that, I'm afraid. But it's not as dark, and it's much more enjoyable, and it's got a lot more of a survival aspect to it, and it's a lot more fun to actually play. I see in the previous game it was okay, but it just didn't feel as developed.
Help me recall, please. there was a Tomb Raider reboot, which was the first game in this new series that was only titled Tomb Raider. And I played a bit of that, and that seemed to be just a bunch of linear puzzles with no actual tomb raiding or free world roaming.
Yeah.
Am I remembering that incorrectly?
You're pretty much remembering it, but it had smallish areas, and there was maybe mini tombs within them, or they weren't really tombs. They were like a crash plane you could go in and explore, and it'd all collapse as you were moving around, and it'd be puzzle based like that. So it'd be all scenery, interacting with it, trying to solve and get solutions and stuff, but that was all optional. But it didn't really work because there was no tomb raiding, and it wasn't really what the character was about. But in this one, literally, there's loads and loads of tombs throughout, and all the puzzle sections you're hunting down like an ancient city, so you've got all that sort of, it's almost like Aztec in a way, and then you go like through cave systems and all these tombs, and it just works a lot better than the first one ever did.
Okay, I'm very pleased to hear about that, because I was ready to give up on this new series, but based on your testimonial, I would like to try Rise of the Tomb Raider now. If only because it... I mean, when you first start the game, it sticks you on top of a mountain. I mean, it's right at the beginning of the game. You're walking through a snowstorm. You have to go scrambling over the mountain to get over to the top to find this like temple. And when you get past then, you carry on with the story and go to the temple. It switches into like the tomb raiding Indiana Jones style, where you're running through, you're having a proper adventure, and like rolling boulders and swinging poles and traps and stuff like that. And you have to really figure your way through it. And the puzzles so far haven't been too difficult. I'm probably about 20 hours into it, but there's a few mind teasers along the way. It does remind me of the older games.
Well, that's at least it's kind of returning in that direction. That sounds a bit more, bit more positive for me, at least. Okay.
Well, I mean, you could pick now. It's just dropped in price massively, and especially with them releasing the Xbox One X patch, it looks even better. So it's worth picking up.
Okay. So Toby, what have you been playing?
Two things really. First of all, Lord of the Rings: Shadow of Mordor, the first one, not the more recent sequel, which I think is out now, isn't it? Is it out?
Yeah, Shadow of War is the second game.
Okay.
That's the one with all of the microtransaction controversy attached to it.
So I'm playing the first one, which was stupid cheap during the last Steam sale. I think it was like £3 or something. So I picked that up, and I'm actually really enjoying it, but there's not much to say about it because we've already talked a lot about Assassin's Creed this evening, and it's basically just Assassin's Creed but in Middle-earth, as far as I can tell.
I would say, I mean, I played that a fair bit, but I thought it was more like the Batman Arkham Asylum games.
Yeah, okay.
It always seemed to strongly remind me of them, especially with the combat and the way you moved around.
Yeah, okay, I see the connection. I mean, I'm enjoying it very much. It's, for £3, it's a fantastic, really high quality game. The gameplay's a lot of fun. One thing that's bothering me a bit is the motion capture and the cutscenes. I'm just like, I feel like I've sort of seen through the veil, and like when I see these orcs, there's a particular orc who sort of acts. I would say he acts a bit like Fagin from Oliver, if you know the character.
Yep.
Like this sort of like hunched down, rough, nasty kind of character. But he's got this particular walk, and like he's walking around as an orc, but all I can see is a man in a black bodysuit with white ping pong balls all over him. And I always feel like I recognize the actor from Grand Theft Auto. Like, there's a particular type of overacting that they're doing. And I feel like I've probably seen some like crack whore in GTA do it as well, And like it's really sort of bursting the bubble for me. And I feel like now I've seen that, I can possibly never go back.
It's some different kind of version of asset reuse, isn't it? So it's actually the motion capture that they're reusing rather than the characters.
I understand, like in video games, you have to sort of overact your voice acting and your physical acting a bit to carry it across because it's not very realistic. But I feel like a switch is thrown in my head and suddenly I'm just seeing straight through it. But apart from that,
Toby, do you feel like that there's an artist that has stretched out the skeleton from the motion capture data improperly?
No, I think it's just the person who's acting it has just over-egged the pudding a bit. And like, the director would have said, okay, be like an orc, and they've sort of walked around a bit like an orc, and they're doing this your funny walk and everything, and I'm just like, okay, this is just a guy in a suit, isn't it? I don't know, like,
I'm just recalling there are a number of 3D fighting games where the martial arts moves were motion captured, but then they realized midway into production that they got the gender of the fighter wrong. And so they had to go and manually adjust the hips and the length of the arms to match the actual model, and it just didn't work. There were seams that they couldn't cover up.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's just overacting. I think like it's just the overacting that's bothering me. The other game I've been playing is Doom VFR, which I got just around about on a release day that came out this month. A game I've been really excited for. This is Doom 2016 reimagined as a VR game. And I mean, first of all I can say is the graphics are just stupendously good. Definitely the best looking VR game I've played so far. It uses Bethesda's, I've started recognizing it, and it was in Dishonored 2. They have this dynamic resolution thing, so to keep the frame rate up, it'll drop down to like 1024 by 768 and then 800 by 600, 640 by 480, like dynamically on the fly. So when you look in a busy room, you'll see it pixelate and then open up again, which you can, it's like it's an artifact that you can see, but it means that they're maintaining at the times when there's less going on, really high visual fidelity. So it's, very occasionally it'll drop down like that, but on the whole it looks absolutely amazing. I would say it looks, apart from being a bit smeary because it's in VR, it doesn't feel like a watered down version of Doom 2016, which was an amazing looking game.
Before you move on from the dynamic resolution, did you know that Mario Odyssey does that?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, to maintain 60 frames per second for the entire duration of the game. That's what it does. I mean, apparently it was Digital Foundry or something were mentioning it. It drops down to 720p sometimes and goes up to 900 to 1080 or whatever. You don't really notice it yourself, probably because of the graphical style. It's not the kind of thing that lends itself to being obviously pixelated or anything like that. So,
I mean, you do notice this when it changes, but if you're in VR, I'm more than happy to take that over stuttering, because stuttering makes you feel sick. So, this is obviously the better option, and it works very well actually. The gameplay itself is it's kind of weird. So there are Doom bits where you go into a room and then trigger a bunch of demons to attack you, but then there's like adventure bits as well. Like I had to go and find a fire extinguisher, and then that became something like an object holding my hand, and I had to go and put out a fire by pulling the trigger and squirting carbon dioxide on a fire, which is not what I would think of as like normal Doom activities. So that was a bit weird.
Fires out, no.
Exactly. Well, I mean, hell is a fire, right? So yeah, I guess. I mean,
that's a big fire extinguisher.
It's in character, isn't it? Just start at one end of hell. But yeah, so there's a couple of weird like walking around bits. I guess that's like an evolution of going and finding key cards. But yeah, that felt a bit strange. And also there's a bit that you found like a character library where you can go and view all of the sort of charismatic Doom creatures all at your own leisure before you have to fight them, which to me felt a bit strange to put it first thing in the game, because it was a bit like a spoiler. I would have quite liked to have had those as being, revealed to me in game rather than knowing them beforehand. But when you play it as, when you get to the Doomy bits, when you walk into a room and the door closes behind you and 15 enemies appear, it's amazing. Like, the animation in Doom 2016 was really good, particularly the imps, who are these guys the hairy guys that throw fireballs from original Doom. They're really nicely designed in New Doom, and they do this lots of like climbing on the walls and jumping and chucking fireballs at you. And as you switch weapons, it dips into slow-mo for a second while you select the next weapon from your thumb pad. And there's these moments where, like, I'll be using one weapon and I want to equip another one. So I click in, so I'm in slow motion. I turn around in real life in normal speed because I'm in VR, but the world around me is in slow motion, and find that behind me there's an imp, and he's like in midair pulling this crazy shape, holding a fireball in his hand, and he's just about to release it, and then the speed speeds up, and then I unleash a volley of plasma into him, and it jibs, and it's just incredible. Like, it's really cool. Like, to have come from original Doom to this, it feels like I'm in 50 years into the future. So that's amazing. That being said, it's intense as hell. Like, if you lose in Doom or Doom 2016, it's like, oh, I lost in the video game, I'll respawn. But in this, if you lose, like, it's it's hardcore. You get swamped by demons, and it's pretty intense. Like, I played it for about, I don't know how long, like maybe 40 minutes, and after 40 minutes I got to a hard bit where I died a couple of times, and I just felt like I had to take the VR headset off and sit down for a minute. And I had an elevated heart rate, and I just felt a bit done in by the whole thing. Who knew that being attacked by demons from hell would be so unpleasant? But it's kind of unpleasant in a good way. But like, it's a game that you want to play where you want to have the energy available to defeat a Baron of Hell before you go in there. It's not a Sunday afternoon game, or not the end of a busy week game probably. And then finally, the one thing I haven't got to yet, but I'm looking forward to, is I've heard that it has the original Doom in there that you can navigate around in VR, which I think is just going to be a particularly unique thrill to be able to go and visit. EM1D, no, what's the word? Anyway, the first level of Doom, to be able to go and stand there, I'm just looking forward to doing that, because that would be like a childhood dream come true.
Is it with the original graphics?
Original graphics, but new enemy sprites. So it's like, the walls and the barrels and everything are original, but it's got the updated imps and guys with chainsaws and barons of hell and whatnot.
Okay.
So you won't have barrels that are just one texture that rotate with you as you go around them.
Although I did notice that the fire in it uses that same trick. So you can turn your head in a certain way, and that thing in games where if you change the camera angle, smoke rotates and you suddenly realize it's a 2D sprite. That thing? Have you seen it?
Yes.
So it does that, and because it's VR, you've got very free movement over your camera because it's just your head. So I did notice that the fire did that, and I think it wasn't a callback, but to me it felt like a callback.
Kendrick, then, what have you been playing?
Well, I wanted to talk about Yakuza Kiwami, which is the remake.
Just say that again, because I like how you say that.
Yakuza Kiwami.
Yeah, that's
so. What you mean is Yakuza for people who've only ever read.
Yes, I mean Yakuza for everyone else who.
We've had this discussion before, but yeah.
yes, we have. Well, for anyone who hasn't listened to the previous 4 episodes, this is the remake of the original Yakuza game from the PlayStation 2. And it, tells the story of Kazuma Kiryu and his rise and fall and rise again. I played the first couple of hours of it, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I find that I'm worried about spoiling my joyful memories of the original game and experiencing that story for the first time. So when I sit down to play it, I always find myself drawn to something else. I know it's good. I know it's going to be good. I'm worried that it's not going to be the same, or that it's going to be worse. And I'm sure that there's a very long German word from a psychology textbook that explains what I'm feeling right now, but I'm just not clever enough to go look it up and use it to explain what I'm feeling.
I'm definitely familiar with the feeling. I've got a lot of games. Like, I find if there's a game that I'm really excited about, I often don't play it because I'm scared that it's not.
That it won't live up.
Yeah, it's better to leave it unfettered in my imagination than to discover the harsh reality of the budget cuts that led to it being, not what I hoped.
We can all enjoy the time when we bought the game. We don't really need to enjoy the time when we're playing it.
Yeah.
How Orwellian. Anyway, so the only thing that I do have to report on is interestingly, it is the European copy of Bloodborne Game of the Year edition, which includes the Old Hunters expansion. The reason that I bought the European disc is because in the United States, you cannot get the Old Hunters on a disc. It is only downloadable content. And because I am a Luddite, I had to have it on the disc. So I bought the European version, which has a different unique identifier in the PlayStation library, and therefore does not have the ability to load all of my original save files from my first run through of the game on the US region disc. So here I am playing through the game again because I am a glutton for punishment and I like to grind, but I find myself really enjoying it. I'm running through what looks like a destroyed Victorian England, killing zombies and unlocking Metroidvania paths. And something that I'm doing this time around that I didn't know to do before is interacting with NPCs. Have any of you played Bloodborne?
So you're putting me to shame a bit here, because I know that you've got a new baby in the house. Now, the original Dark Souls came out about the same time as I had my first kid. And there was a huge internet furore about how amazing it was, but how punishing it was. And I chose at that point to take a step back and just not get into this whole Dark Souls thing, because I thought, with kids, I just don't have time for a game like this. This is not something that you can do if you've got parenting to do, but somehow you're managing to do it. So either that or you're about to fail. Like, maybe the world's going to catch up with you any day now.
Well, it helps to know what you're doing going in. And, as you've pointed out, Bloodborne is, in all but name, a Dark Souls game. But if you go in knowing that already and knowing how it's played, you can spend a couple of hours unlocking a path as opposed to spending 5 or 6 days getting completely, I think the British term is mullered. Is that a good decision? Getting completely mullered by enemies that you didn't know the arrangement of because it takes that long to map it out mentally. So I'm coming at this with a couple of advantages that I wouldn't have if I were just playing it for the first time fresh.
So I'm guessing the DLC then. Well, it's not DLC for you because it's on the disc, but
yes.
I'm guessing the DLC you can't play separately. It's not a separate story. You need to have finished the first game, or is it just?
It's that very, very weird From Software thing where the DLC is kind of nailed to the side of a different area, and so it's possible to play through the whole game and not see it. Mm-hmm. If you finished the game and you've started a new game plus, you have to play through to that point again to be able to get to it. So it's mild spoilers for anyone who cares. In Bloodborne, the hub area is called the Hunter's Dream. This is where you store your equipment and level up and confer with NPCs. The new expansion is an area called the Hunter's Nightmare, where previous failed hunters are trapped, and there's a couple of new bosses and many new types of equipment. It's completely disjoint from the rest of the game, but it gives you power-ups and abilities and equipment that wasn't available in the game originals. I was going to make a point before about, I can't remember what point I was going to make before, which probably makes for scintillating podcast listening. The reason I asked if any of you had played it before, one of the things that I didn't know the first time around that I know now is that NPC interaction is very, very strange. You have to look for doorways or windows that are lit a certain way, usually with a lantern outside. And then when you go to speak to the NPC, you almost never see them. If you put your face right up against a monitor, you might see a sliver of a face between the doorway crack, or you might see their shirt sleeve through a broken piece of the window pane. But they've gone and they've rendered all of these beautiful NPC characters in their glorious Victorian clothing, and you don't get to see them at all. You talk to them, you interact with them, you might get equipment or do all the usual signpost NPC things with them that you would do in an RPG, but you don't get to see them, and it's incredibly disconcerting. I'm sure that it was a specific artistic choice to do that, but I didn't know to do this the first time that I played, and so I was just blindly trying to get information from combat only, not realizing that there were all these people hiding in their houses that I could have been talking to. So again, another advantage coming in that I didn't have the first time around. So that's Bloodborne, The Old Hunters. As always, I'm a few years behind everyone and at complete right angles in terms of what I'm playing.
Way ahead of me there, because like I said, I've not even played the first Dark Souls yet. So
I haven't even completed Demon Souls yet. Never mind Dark Souls, all these new games.
Since you mentioned that, I think it's worth pointing out that the Demon Souls servers are going to be shut down soon. I believe that the date that From Software indicated was April 2018. But, it's a PS3 game, and it's not being remastered or re-released as far as anyone knows. And the player base is obviously dropped.
No, Demon Souls, no, you're right.
Yes.
Kind of also related, there is rumour going around, and this has partly come from somebody who works for From Software, I believe, unless I'm making this up as well, I might be, you never know, about a possible Switch version of Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3.
I would not be surprised to see that. There's a lot of... for all that these games are very special, they use a lot of off-the-shelf SDKs, a lot of normal physics engines and normal graphics engines. So porting to the Switch would not be a difficult task at all. The online play might be a different matter entirely, but just the basic single-player game, that could live on the Switch very easily.
Yeah, I think there was, as well as that, there was some I want to say Swedish, but perhaps not, online retailer that listed it for a few minutes and then it disappeared, which is not always proof of anything, but where there's smoke, there's fire, perhaps. So you never know. So that's stuff we've been playing, and we have a bumper Christmas mailbag of questions. Look at this. Isn't it nice to see that we have more than one listener? Or potentially the same listener with different names, as was pointed out last time.
Or two listeners and 5 people who have participated in the podcast previously.
Well, there's also the possibility that they don't listen.
This is true.
We ask on Twitter for people to send us questions, but of course we don't check to see if they actually listen to the answers. So, so we could say anything really here. Anyway, but we'll go through them. So the first one is from Fizzy Chicken on Twitter, and he says, now the Switch is cool and stuff, is there any point picking up an old Wii U, and what are the must-play titles? So first thing to say here is the Wii U, I don't know about what it is in the US, but over here, where it is still in stock in stores, it's virtually the same price as a Switch. Still. It's still like 250 quid.
That is the case here in the States as well. It has not been discounted. Retailers are in no hurry to get it off their shelves, and they're not motivated to take a loss in order to do so.
No, it's an odd situation, and even second hand.
It's very weird. I assume they'll just get to a point where they just won't be able to keep it because they'll need the shelf space, or they'll just probably start discounting it like crazy.
Yeah,
I suspect there might be an agreement with Nintendo regarding the price of the hardware. They may be legally obligated not to sell it below a certain price.
Yeah, maybe it could be something that was put in place quite some time ago for 5 or 6 years, expecting the life of the Wii U to be that long, and it just didn't happen. But it's odd. I mean, the knock-on effect there is that second-hand ones aren't that cheap either, so you'd be lucky to get one for under 100 quid probably, and that's still a fair price.
That's a lot of money to pay just to be able to have Super Mario Maker, which in my mind is the only worthwhile exclusive, given that everything else is likely to be re-released on the Switch at some point.
Well, it's not even exclusive because you can play it on the 3DS.
But the 3DS does not support sharing of user-created levels, does it?
Not in the same way, no. It lets you do it through Street Pass or something, but also they've turned off the sharing of the levels anyway.
Oh, so there's no point. There's no point to that either, then.
No, well, I don't know if they've done it yet, but they certainly have announced that they're going to. That time may have passed now, but yeah, it's not. They're not going to be around forever. So I think what they're doing is that they're having a top 1,000 or something that you can download from, but no more can be uploaded or downloaded or something. So I mean, that's only bound to stay around for a while anyway. So apart from Super Mario Maker.
I turned on my Switch this evening and went. There's like a player stats thing that
Yes.
I've probably not run since I first ran it, but I opened that up this evening just to see what the numbers said on what I played over the last year. And you can't rank it across the whole year, but I looked at what was floating to the top, and we had Smash Brothers, Bayonetta 2, Hyrule Warriors, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and Splatoon. And of those, to me, the most special one that I don't think I can get anywhere else would be Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which for me, that captured the Wii U. That was like my Wii U game, I think.
Yeah, it is good, and no, you can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah. Splatoon's been superseded now, I think, with Splatoon 2, probably, or I've not heard anyone talk about that. I don't know if it's any good.
No, it's basically the same game with different maps and a few extra weapons. The single-player mode on it apparently is quite different, a bit more fleshed out, but I've not played it. But the main bulk of the game is, the online stuff it's the same with different levels, basically. There's a rumour going around as well they might bring back some of the original levels as possibly free DLC in the future. I'd be surprised if they don't, to be honest. Because it must be very simple for them to do it, and when they turn off the Splatoon servers, they're going to want to coax more people over, aren't they? So that's bound to happen at some point. My picks would be, as well as Captain Toad, New Super Mario Bros. U, which I think is the best 2D Mario game. I know a lot of people disagree. A lot of people say Super Mario World or Mario 3, but to me, New Super Mario Bros. U, I had so much fun with that. 100%ed it. Brilliant. So I'd take that. Super Mario 3D World as well is good. Perhaps not quite as good as some of the other Mario games, but it was still a decent game, and it's still Wii U exclusive. But possibly the top pick would be Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE or Hash FE. I would say Sharp FE, seeing as it's music, perhaps, maybe.
This is the Persona
it's
spin-off.
Persona Lite. It's what got me into Persona. it's persona in everything but complexity, I think. Yeah, and that's brilliant. 70, 100-hour JRPG. Yeah, so that's great. And currently, that's only on the Wii U as well. Anyone else? Just me.
Struggling to actually remember some of the games. Probably the biggest one I played was Mario Kart, but that's been re-released, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit pointless buying that for the Wii U now, really.
Yeah.
Okay. So, question from Gazimod. Again, he hasn't told us whether he's actually Quasimod or Kazimod or I don't know, Gazimod anyway. So he says, I heard there was this Tumblr out there that collected screenshots of toilets in video games. In your opinion, were there any standout WCs in 2017? So that's clearly aimed at me because I'm the one who has the Tumblr, which is screenshots of toilets in video games. So in actual games that come out this year, the only one really I would say is Life is Strange Before the Storm. It's got some nice toilets. In one of the scenes, Chloe even stands on one. So so to play a central role there is very important. But the problem is they're all asset reuse from the first game. They're all in the same place. They all look exactly the same, so they don't really count. Also not this year. Hitman had some brilliant toilets. You could drown people in them. They had those Japanese toilets that sing and dance and do all kinds of things. Yeah, that was great, but that's not 20.
I've got that to play. I have to keep an eye out for them.
Toilets definitely. They've got those like portable toilets, and there are rundown toilets, and there are office toilets, and there are these ultra modern Japanese toilets. It's just heaven for toilets, basically. It's one of the best games I played this year, probably just because of the toilets. So I realise I'm a very strange person. But
deKay, were you aware that there's an entire quest in Yakuza 0 that's based around a public toilet?
No, but I do know there were in some of the other ones, because in order to get to one of the buildings, you have to go through a secret entrance in a toilet in the northeast part of Kamaroko, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. From the first Yakuza game forward. That's how you make it into the homeless camp.
That's
where
right,
they're hiding away from the police. I'm actually thinking of there's a part of Majima's story where he's running around Osaka doing whatever the hell it is he's doing, and he sees some graffiti on the toilet stall wall, which starts the mission. And he decides that he's interested in pursuing the woman who's written this graffiti. I won't spoil the story because it's a Yakuza mission. It goes 9 kinds of bananas, as you're playing, and it of course ends in combat and a mysterious NPC that you never see again. But that's the one toilet I would think of as a standout in 2017. Although now that I think about it, I don't know that you actually see the toilet. If I remember correctly, Majima goes into the public toilet.
That's just cheating.
With no goal.
You've led us down an alley there.
I'm very sorry. I'm remembering this correctly now. I think he goes into the public toilet, and then the camera stays outside on the door as the subtitles come up, and he's talking to himself, because that's what people do in toilets.
Yeah.
So I retract my recommendation. You don't actually get a screenshot of the toilet in that game. So forgive me.
That's terrible. Here's something toilet related, actually. So I got a message on Twitter from somebody about 3 weeks ago saying, I see you're very interested in toilets in video games, and I'm doing a research paper on it, and I was wondering if I could interview you. And I replied back with, what, you really? And he was serious. So I took part in a research paper based around toilets in video games.
Well done, you.
When can we read it?
Oh, it's. I don't think it's finished, but it's an ongoing project. So there is actually.
That does sound quite worrying. He did ask for your home address, did he?
No. And I'm not the only person who he interviewed. All of his, because obviously it's a.
Are you sure?
Well, unless he made all the other ones up, I suppose he might have done. But, I don't know if any of you have heard the guy Ultra Brilliant on Twitter, Andy Kelly. No. Anyway, he was another person who was approached, and there was an interview with him and a couple of other people I recognised as well from it. So we're obviously a very close knit community. Those of us who like toilets in video games. But yeah, there was odd questions. It was like, why are you so fascinated by toilets in video games? Why not, perhaps maybe vents? Well, isn't it obvious? Why would you be interested in vents in a game when there's toilets? I mean, it's a stupid question. Anyway,
well,
so
forgive me for playing amateur psychoanalyst. This is not too dissimilar from the discussion of why there are no toilets in Star Trek, because obviously, Kirk and Spock must defecate at some point. So we never see the toilets. I
assumed it was teleported out of them. I just,
No, but am I overinterpreting, or is the portrayal of a toilet in a video game sort of a tacit acknowledgement of actual human functionality and frailty? These are badass space marines who can carry 11 weapons in each arm, and who can make love in zero gravity with no oxygen, but they still have to poop.
Isn't it that level designers have to try and up their game, and an easy thing to do is to add interactivity? And if you could add interactivity, an easy thing to do is to just, I don't know, what do you make interactive? Well, the toilets could flush. Okay, there we go. I can put that on my resume.
Yeah, there is that. I think to be slightly serious about it, I think what Kendrick was saying, I think looking at the results he's put together and the conclusions he's made so far, I think it is kind of in that way. So looking at my answers to the questions, I think perhaps maybe I didn't take it quite as seriously as he was hoping. Let's hope he still gets his diploma. So moving on. So Tubes says, what's the game you wished you'd played in 2017 but didn't have the platform it was released on? So and there was a related question as well, how annoying are the platform exclusives?
Yeah, for me that's Polybius from Llamasoft, which is currently a PSVR exclusive, but I'm reliably informed from Llamasoft's Twitter that it's coming to PC very soon. I can't remember exactly when, but it sort of feels like a couple of months maybe. But yeah, and won't be in 2017, I don't think.
No, probably not. I haven't got any really, because I haven't got an Xbox One, but there aren't really any exclusives I want. I mean, there were a few a while back. One of them may be Cuphead, but I could potentially play that on my computer if I wanted to. Apart from that, no, nothing really. So it's not really affected me.
Mine would have to be Mario Odyssey. I had a Wii at launch, but I only kept it for a few months. I couldn't wait for the games. I was getting a bit bored. So,
do you mean the Switch?
Sorry, the Switch. Yeah. I don't know when I'm going to go back in, to be honest. I mean, I'm interested in it, but there's just not enough games at the moment to worth shelling out for.
There were 7 games released today.
7 games. It's hardly any.
Today.
I want to list another 20.
Well, they're coming on Thursday. And I'm not even joking. That's pretty much how many are coming out this week. It's about 30 games out this week. Admittedly, everybody played them on Steam 4 years ago, but that's
I am going to willfully misinterpret Troops' question, because he's obviously talking about platforms which were made available recently. And I still have it in my head somewhere that the very short-lived Nintendo DSi had a few exclusive titles that I missed out on because I completely skipped that iteration of the handheld. I can't think of what those might be, but
there were
given how...
I don't think there were any cartridge-based games that were unique apart from the Nintendo web browser,
right?
Which may have appeared on there. But there were a few download-only games, but they are available on the 3DS as download.
Okay, so
games.
So the platform's completely irrelevant in that case. Pretty
much, I think. Yeah, I mean there was what were they? The remakes of Pokemon Crystal and Pokemon Sapphire or whatever they were. I think
because I have time to play those.
Yeah. I think they had a few extra bits on a DS. I'm trying to struggle to remember now.
I've just googled it. The 2 that have come up are face training.
Yeah.
So you could have trained your face.
That's on the 3DS.
Hair salon, so you could have done your hair.
That I don't know.
It would really possibly changed your whole life, if you did 2 things.
Yeah. No, apart from that, no, I don't think you've missed anything. SMDEEEE, which I'm thinking is SMDE. He keeps changing his name every now and again to be some other variant of SMD, but there you are. He says, are you going to eat that? No, I don't know where it's been. So that's that for that question, I think. One slightly more serious.
You're cutting that out in the edit, aren't you?
What, the question?
Yeah, well, and our banter afterwards, yes.
Yes, obviously. Then Tim Miller, he says, it's taken me about 10 hours to get Populous at the beginning working on my new work laptop. Well, what a waste of time that was. What is the most effort you've gone to for a game? Not really of that kind of thing, but I did have to buy a specific cable and a SCART adapter so I could play the Mega Drive Sonic the Hedgehog on the original Wii, because I had component cables, and originally some of the Virtual Console games wouldn't work properly on some TVs. Something to do with the resolution they were in or something. So I had to get a second set of cables from my AV receiver to the TV, and I had to order them off the internet, and they took about 2 weeks to arrive and whatever. I could have just played Sonic on about 15 other devices I already had, but no, I had to get the cables to make it work, and then they updated it a few weeks later and it worked without them, so that was all a big waste of time. But that was...
For me, when I was at uni in halls, I remember a friend of mine had a laptop, and I had Duke Nukem 3D shareware, and I thought if I can get it from my computer to their computer, then we could play deathmatch together. So this was my goal. But their laptop didn't have, this was like year 2000 or 1999. It won't have had a CD drive or a floppy drive, probably didn't have a network card. Maybe it had like a modem, I don't know. What it did have was an RS-232 port, so I probably asked Jeeves on how to send things across RS-232, and found that you could do it using hyperterminal. So I remember trying to send Duke Nukem 3D shareware via hyperterminal from my computer to this friend's laptop so that we could deathmatch. And I did the maths today because I wanted to know how long it should have taken, and Duke 3D was just short of 6 megabytes, and a 9600 board that should have only taken an hour and a half. But my memory of this is that it was like a days long project. Like I was leaving it running overnight, and then it would fail, and I'd try again, and I never got it working. But I remember spending a lot of time on that because the debate of sweet Duke Nukem 3D Deathmatch was compelling me to stick at it, but I think I never got anywhere.
I think I have you both beat. In 2002, I did not have a PC in the house. I had only game systems and laptops that I had from work that I was forbidden to install any games on. And I discovered that I liked The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind on the Xbox so much that I had to buy a PC in order to play it on. And because I was very cheap and quite skint at the time, I went and bought some remaindered corporate workstation that accepted only half-height PCI cards. So
it was probably Gateway branded or something as well, wasn't it?
It was some oddball Dell unit.
Oh right.
I couldn't remember the name of the model to save my life, but we don't have time for this whole story. It ends with me sitting in my garage with an angle grinder and tin snips to fabricate a custom bracket so that my full height ATI Radeon 125, whatever it was, would be mounted correctly on the back of this half height Dell machine so that I could get a DVI output so that I could play Morrowind properly on the PC and run mods on it.
Did it work?
Yes, it did. And it worked for a good 4 or 5 years until the power supply exploded in a shower of sparks and misery. And then, I went and got a real PC because I had some money then.
Oh, well, that was a bit of effort, I think, maybe. So, Luffer, off of the podcast, he says, what is a good festive theme game to play at Christmas? Well, I think we've already mentioned that, where it's Christmas nights.
Excluding that, though, are there other games that have a particularly Christmassy feel to them?
Christmas
RoboCod.
RoboCod,
James Bond 2 RoboCod.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
There's the official Father Christmas game for the Spectrum.
Oh,
I don't know how official
it
is, but... And Shenmue, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was snowing that day when the men with the black car and the suits...
The day the snow turned to rain.
The incident.
Yeah.
Where are the sailors? Can you drive a forklift?
Here's
I
another
hope he
fun
finds
game.
them sailors in the third game. Else I'm asking for a refund.
There better be sailors, yeah. There's a game I play called the Shenmue game, which isn't actually the actual game. It's, do you know when you're on a website and you're just looking at things that they sell and it pops up in the corner, one of those can I help you things? I ask them I ask them questions like do you know where there may be any sailors? Or I say, where were you on the day the snow turned to rain? Or have you seen any black cars? And see how long I can keep them on there before they kick me off or actually twig what I'm talking about.
I'm fairly sure if instead of spending £300 on the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter, I think for that money you probably could have got some sailors to come to your house. I've seen that on a website somewhere.
Yeah, that's probably true. So possibly with the related answer to this question, Hack says, biggest gaming letdown or disappointment of 2017? Well, it could be Shenmue 3, but I don't know. There's it's Mario Odyssey, isn't it? Yeah, it's Mario Odyssey.
I'll say it's been an absolutely amazing year for games. I can't think of anything that stands out as being really disappointing or bad, and there's been pretty much constant stream of good games. So,
well, the games have been good. The state of the industry has not been, and I don't know if this is because we're adults now and we're more aware of it, but there have been many game studios that have closed in 2017. I believe, was it Pandemic that was recently closed? And then what was the other Star Wars related one?
I can't remember, and we mentioned it last time as well.
And I'm ashamed of that because they passed so quickly from the memory, and you would think that we would be more fired up about it. But a lot of the game industry has gotten more expensive and less productive, and it's hard to articulate that as a singular point of as a singular letdown or a singular disappointment. And I don't know if this has always been true or if we're just more aware of it now. But to me, that is kind of if we have to give the beast a name, I guess the word is consolidation. Consolidation in the video game industry and in technology at large is the biggest disappointment because it's possibly affecting our ability to enjoy and receive a diverse product.
Yeah.
Gee, I'm Mr. Happy Fun Time. Merry Christmas, everyone.
This is supposed to be our Christmas special, you know. This.
Yes.
Oh dear, someone blocked up your chimney.
Yes.
It was you, wasn't it? Right. And the final question from Niaz, and he says, Game of the Year, ? Yes, there was one. It's too early to decide Game of the Year, in my opinion, because there's so much more that can happen in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I tend to play games from 1 to 2 years ago, so I can give you the game of 2014, 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm in much the same boat. Everything I'm playing right now is either very old or is not on anyone's radar as the best accomplishment of the past 12 months.
Yeah.
One thing I can say, Microsoft did a thing the other day where you can plug in your gamer tag and it gives you a splashy page telling you what you did this year. I did that for me. I tried to find one for Steam, but I couldn't do it in time for the podcast. So this year, it's always surprising watch these. The game I played the most was Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, which I've been doing co-op on Thursday nights regularly, so that's taken the top spot. Number 2 is Monkey Island 2 Special Edition, which I finished with my kids this year. That was a joy to play through them because they'd not seen it before. Obviously, I know it very well. And then after that, Battlefield 3, and then Monkey Island 2 again. That's in there twice. Oh, I see. The Chuck's. I'm not sure why that's in there twice. Maybe it's Monkey Island 1 or Monkey Island 2. And then Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, which was a fantastic multiplayer game that I'm stuck on, but I put a lot of time into this year.
You know, if I did that across all of my platforms of choice, I would be disappointed to discover that the game I played most this year was Skyrim. And I think that's absolutely the case. I played it on the 360. I played it on the PS4. I played it most of all on the PC. I don't know why I keep going back to it because I've seen every corner of it, or at least I think I have. And Have
you tried modding it though? That's the other part.
Oh yes. I've installed all kinds of mods on the PC version, and to a lesser extent on the PS4. So it's my installation of Skyrim on my gaming laptop is a sea of inappropriate thong underwear and exposed cleavage. I'm doing my part to make women feel welcome in gaming communities. But But no, seriously, there's no reason for me to have played that more than I've played all the other games in my library combined. I don't know why that would be true, but it absolutely is. I don't know what addictive substance they put on the electrons that makes me keep playing it and makes me want to keep escaping from Helgen and go hunting dragons. But that would have to be my default game. I wouldn't call it Game of the Year, But
they just released it on the Switch as well, so
yeah,
have portable Skyrim now.
Oh God! Just take my money and tap my veins.
In 2018, I might play it for the first time. I've still not played a minute of Skyrim, but if it comes out for PC VR, which I think it probably will,
pretty much
yes,
certain, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one in the works.
It's just going to be a port of the PSVR version, which is on store shelves everywhere now.
Right, so Game of the Year is a game that didn't come out this year for everyone, pretty much then.
Excellent.
Good. I'm glad we sorted that out. And that brings us to the end of the podcast for this week, month, and indeed year. So thanks to everyone who has listened this year, and thanks for sending in any comments and questions and being very nice to us and asking us to do more episodes, which is always a surprise, especially they've never listened to any of them, have they? That's the thing. They just want us to give up several hours of our life every couple of weeks for no reason whatsoever. That's what it is. I
love spending time with you.
Well, no, that is nice, but thanks for that. So if anybody does want to get in contact with us, they can email us at podcast@ugvm.org.uk, or they can send us messages on Twitter @ugvmpodcast, or they can probably leave comments. I think I turn that on the UGVM website, ugvm.org.uk/podcast. And we also have the Steam Curator page, which I'll provide a link to, hopefully, in the show notes. Apart from that, if anybody wants to plug anything, just firstly, if you would like to follow me on Twitter, I'm deKay01. If you would like to see all of my screenshots and videos of toilets, then on Tumblr, I'm toiletsinvideogames.tumblr.com, I think. That sounds about right. Would anybody else like to plug anything?
On Twitter, I am at SKTOBY. On most gaming services, I'm AskToby, AskToby.
I'd like to do my usual plug of GameSX.com. This is the website run by NFG Man, where we modify retro game consoles. If you'd like to add an S-cart connector or modify the region.
Hang on, did you say S-cart there?
Is that something to do with SCART but pronounced wrong?
I had no idea. You call it SCART as opposed to S-cart.
Yeah, it's
SCART.
French, right?
Well, it's not S-cart Go, no, but anyway, I sit corrected. If you would like to add a SCART connector to the back of your retro 16 or 32-bit console, or if you'd like to change the region, come to GameSX.com, and we have all the instructions and all the advice you could have.
Excellent. Go and do that. And Lorf, what would you like to plug?
Well, my Twitter is @Lorfarius, nice and easy, and I also do a weekly podcast about the classic Amiga called Amigarama. I'm only up to about 8 or 9 episodes so far, and I'm doing it on my own, but keep plugging away at it, and I'm doing quite well. So
I'm amazed you're managing to do one every week, to be honest.
So am I, to be honest, because I can't believe the amount of work that has to go into it.
Well, yeah, not just that, and play the games as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
it's quite a task.
Yeah, but yes. So do follow him on that and listen to his podcast and all that kind of thing. And all that remains really is for us to say goodbye and Merry Christmas, unless you don't celebrate Christmas, in which case Happy Monday. Goodbye.